yeah. Getting money like cashier. Get the money like a cashier. Customer, clientele. I was broke, that was last year. Getting money like cashier. Get the money like a cashier. Benjamin, nothing less. I was broke, that was last year. Don't change them. I never switched up. Been down since day one. Stay social. People change them.
Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Kevin Cox. Welcome to another episode of DBT Live. I'm here with my beautiful wife, Ranye.
Hello, my name is Ranye Cox.
She got the baby Revere on her shoulder right there.
Sneak peek.
Yep. Hanging out. Look, we want to talk about a really big subject. Talking about as I was educated right before we started this show, the rebellion, not the riots of LA, but the rebellion in 1992 in LA. And we have a very special host that I want to bring on, co-host, I want to say, or interviewee / co-host, Professor Amin Ra.
And
hello, sir.
I'm Bonnie Ghani, y'all, and just happy to be here. Yes.
How's it going today? Are you doing good?
Always black and beautiful, man. The struggle continues. We got the guys surrounded.
Yes, sir. The struggle does continue.
Winning. As long as we resist, we winning.
That's right. That's true. That's true. Always words of wisdom come from Professor Amin Ra. Done lots of work with your son Omar.
Yeah.
Knew you had to have a strong black father.
Well, you must too kind. But I'm proud of him and his accomplishments, his achievements in Aurora, Colorado. And I mean, even before that, when he was at Cal State Long Beach, where he was president of the Black Student Union and worked with the EOP program to help people get in school. And he was a student leader and activist, and I appreciate that.
I appreciate it too. Leadership runs in the blood, it looks like. So I want to take my hat off to you as a powerful black father and leader in the community. And as I was saying, you educated me on the phone a little bit before the show started that in 1992, you were a part of a rebellion, not a riot. In that the riot basically was kind of the narrative that was put onto it. It was more of a rebellion because explain some of that difference to me.
Okay. First of all, let me say I'm Professor Amin Ra, Professor Emeritus of California State University of Long Beach, where I taught for 34 years. I'm a former member of Compton City Council, Compton Unified School District Board of Trustees, as well as Compton Community College Board of Trustees. I've been an activist in many, many struggles going back to the 60s, coming out of high school, participated in a lot of demonstrations, part of a lot of different community organizations. Now, what I was saying was that the system, or the Eurocentric system, and some middle-class black people refer to LA 92 and 1965 as riots. But the European don't say the Boston Tea Party was a riot. He don't talk about the Civil War was started by a riot or anything like that, because it was political. It was a movement. The 1992 is just a part of the historical struggles and resistance activities of black people throughout our history. Starting on the continent of Africa, we resisted being caught and chained and brought through the door of no return to come to this country to be enslaved. They didn't go to Africa to get slaves. They went to Africa to get people, and then they brought them over here and enslaved them. So some people that think the word, when you say slave, they just associate it with black people, but it should be associated with white folks, because they're the ones that did the enslaving. We always fought for freedom And we wouldn't be free today if it wasn't for resistance and struggle on the boat and throughout the colonial period. And, there's two parts of the Holocaust of enslavement. One was the colonial one where the colonies and started it, and then when the United States started, or America became an independent country, they continued it, even though the Declaration of Independence suggested that it was a cruel and unnecessary wrong, and they shouldn't be doing it. But for economic reasons, and because they were racist, and because they were vicious people, inhumane people, they continued the Holocaust of enslavement. Now, getting back to LA 92, LA 92 comes on top of many other rebellions. In the Kerner's report, after 1965, he outlines many racial rebellions and resistance movement, but they termed them as riots, of course. But the point is, they were resistant. Martin Luther King, even though it was a nonviolent, it was a resistance. It was a social resistance. There's two parts to the liberation movement: a civil rights and a black power of the 60s. And, I was a part of the black power, but that was mainly it. And this is why we refer to the 1992, which we celebrate. And we do it annually out here in California, of the Black Conscious organizations, myself, along with Dr. Maulana Karanga and the organization us, BCCLA, Black Community Clergy and Labor organization, and some other progressive organizations. We celebrate and recognize and give commemoration to the 63 deaths that were lost in LA 92. And we also celebrate the resistors, the 12,000 people that were arrested during LA 92. Now, the Rodney King and Tasha Harlan and a number of other killings and the oppression of Black people by police as an occupied army, suppressing and doing what they want to do to us and getting away with it, killings and beatings and things of that nature, along with poverty and along with unemployment and along with housing disparity, health disparity. All that contributed to why people rebelled in LA 92. Now, there were some groups that were out there for other reasons, but they indirectly contributed to the resistance movement. And I was a conscientious observer in 1992 as a school board member. I went out and rode around and just keeping an eye on the police and seeing the difference between the 1965 rebellion and the LA 92 rebellion, and which I was a part of the LA Watts. I did 45 days in juvenile hall for expropriating reparations from the system. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you talked a lot about precursors to LA 92, and honestly, I want you to take it back as far as you can. You mentioned something to me about a group called Sons of Watts.
Yeah. Well, we celebrate every August. We celebrate. Well, it's during the month of Black August, but we celebrate the Watts Rebellion, and we commemorate the 33 people that were murdered. 15 of them were shot in the back, and we had a festival. It's called the Watts Festival, along with a major concert that's on video called Wattstack that happened in 1968, though. But the 1965, right after the rebellion of 1965, 1966, we had what was called the Watts Festival. And so we commemorate those that lost their lives, those that were arrested. We look at them as political prisoners. That was majority Black people in 1965. In LA 92, it was a combination of Latinos, Asians, whites, They were rebelling in Hollywood, on Wilshire, on the Rodeo Road, and in other states, and it was a national resistance movement. Yeah, some people did go in and expropriate things that they felt they deserved. Some people even gave them back and trying to make deals so that they didn't go to prison or jail. But the point is that it was a movement. It wasn't just a riot, because that's what the system wants you to say. It had no political implications. That's why they always try to tell us we enslaved ourselves and that it was economics, it was a slave trade. How you talking about trading human beings? That don't even make sense. That's why they won't apologize for it. And that's why they won't pay reparations, because it's an admission that they participated in genocide against African people by destroying them physically and culturally as a people, even though we have rebounded, many of us, and get in our right minds and still deal with the issues that we are confronted with under this voter suppression, police murders, and as well as unjust courts and the prison industrial complex of the disproportion of Black people in prison. So the struggle continues. But as long as we're struggling, we're winning. Some people say, well, you can't win. They got all the guns. They got all that. That's what they said in Vietnam. But the Vietnam won. They said that about everyone. Look, I mean, you resist with what you have. The Palestinians been fighting the oppression of their land by Israel for years, over 60 years. And, they throw rocks, but as long as they're fighting, the war's not over. There's a lot of victories the system have. Like they're doing today, talking about Ukraine, that they're winning because they're not letting Russia roll over them. But even though Russia is taking territory and bombing their cities to mother room, they won't say that Ukrainians are losing, or lost. No, as long as you're fighting, you're winning.
Even as far back as say Tiananmen Square, if you're willing to stand in front of a tank, you're definitely not losing. You're winning if you're willing to do that. You still are bigger in spirit.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
That's a good way to frame the struggle. I want to start touching on some of the like the precursors to LA 92. After talking about as much of your background as you want to dig into. Feel free to cut me off if there's something that pops into your head you want to drop on us that kind of will help frame this conversation. Because by all means, I know you have more insight than I do, especially being native. And my wife was living here. We were young in 1992. We were in grade school and whatnot. So anything you want to drop on us that you see maybe a blind spot. But one of the things that I was not remotely aware of was the killing of Oliver Beasley.
Yeah.
I want you to touch on that, because I think what we're doing is we're kind of talking about adding kindling up and increasing the heat until the fire basically comes out. So tell us a little bit about Oliver Beasley before we even remotely try to get to Rodney King.
And Latasha Harlan.
Yes, sir.
Oliver, I knew him personally because I worked close with the Nation of Islam. They were driving down the street somewhere in South Los Angeles, and the police got behind them, and they drove in a driveway. And somehow some scuffling started, and Oliver ended up getting shot and killed. I think about other people were shot by the police. The Nation of Islam was at that time was headed by Minister Farrakhan. They had a big rally at the sports arena, but they didn't demonstrate for Oliver. They organized and but they didn't participate in the protest from that standpoint. That made people, because people loved the Nation of Islam, that also infuriated them as far as that. And at that time, we were still arguing against apartheid for Nelson Mandela. He hadn't been released yet. And we also were organizing and demanding the release of Jijaga Geronimo Pratt at that time. So there was a lot of issues that were precursors that was in the back of our of some of our minds from a conscious standpoint. The gentrification, the use of major Black communities as drop cities for immigrants, and the role of the Catholic Church in housing and taking over or getting critical space that at one time was occupied by the Black community, like Watts, like Compton. They had radical changes in the 80s and in the 90s. I mean, in the 70s, in a 10-year period, many of the Black communities were being dissolved by design. The whole purpose of gentrification and breaking up, because we were a stronghold when we were all together. We were a voting bloc. We were, even though we had inter-group conflict, but the fact that we were all around each other. So most of the Black communities of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s have been broken up out here in Southern California. And now a lot of it is through immigration. The other people moved out because of crime. Then others people migrated because they got the anti-poverty programs created the middle class and manpower development. So they moved with it from projects and from the houses in Watts and Compton to suburbs. You see what I'm saying? That's where San Bernardino and Rialto, Moreno Valley, they could go and they created a seduction for them by giving them unique financing and just to break up the Black community. It was a part of their strategy, to me. So that was all a precursor to weakening the Black community after LA 92, but it really started after LA 65. But the point is that there were a lot of issues that we were dealing with. The Latasha Harlan, along with Beasley killing, where the jury found the Soon Jadu, I think that's her name, Soon Jadu. She was a store worker, and she shot Latasha in the back of the head. Now, the jury found her guilty and recommended 16 years. And the judge commuted that and threw that sentence out and gave her 5 years probation and 200-something hours of community service. And that just was an insult based upon how they treated African Americans for even lesser crimes, in far as giving them. That's also what contributed to the frustration going into the 90s was the Clinton crime bill, and the California state a minimum sentence. That all added to frustration and the breakup of the Black family, as well as the destruction of the Black, the incarceration of the Black male. And so all of that contributed to the precursors of why people would start tearing up the system and rebelling against the system, because they saw the system for what it really is. It's not a democracy, it's a hypocrisy, as Malcolm X said.
I wanted to go further into I want to go further into that Oliver Beasley because this article that I had pulled up. Let me grab it real quick. It was talking about how basically the confrontation basically broke out, including the SWAT team. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. But we have rebellions in different ways all the time. A lot of people came out and were upset about the Beasley killing because they knew the Nation of Islam. First of all, they know they never carried guns. It was
no
against
deputy
their
was hurt.
doctrine. It was against their doctrine to use guns, so they were unarmed. And the system the police should have known that. Second, that you got to understand that the Nation of Islam, they did a lot of converting people. A lot of family members appreciated them who, when their sons and daughters became members, especially those that may have been on drugs or may have been having issues, and cleaned them up and turned them into religious people. So the Nation of Islam is a religious organization, a black nationalist, or black. They don't even refer themselves as black. They say the Asiatic people. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had died in 72 or 73, and then Minister Farrakhan rebuilt it in 1978 because Wallace D. Muhammad wouldn't. But Oliver Beasley was a strong, popular brother that was a part of the Nation of Islam, and people were upset about it. So they began to organize and have demonstrations protesting the killing, because he was just a part of the same killings of Larry Morris, Eula Love, police. They were not just demonstrating because there was a Muslim killed, a black Muslim. They were doing it because one of our brothers, a black brother, was killed. And so that's what contributed to it. And Dr. Khalid Muhammad, at that time, Harold X, was the leader of the California branch of the Nation of Islam, or a mosque here in the Western Regional Spokesman for Minister Farrakhan. And he was a very fiery brother. We had a number of organizations at that time. We had the Pan-African Secretariat. We had the New African People Organization. We had the US Organization. We had, from a black nationalist standpoint, we had the Malcolm X Organization. So there was a lot of people that were very upset about Beasley being shot and the police not being charged.
As I saw in that article, it said that the officers were trying to say we were fighting for our lives, and none of them were hurt, and they just ended up shooting people, and the people they were dealing with were completely unarmed. So that's more of the hypocrisy, like you were talking about.
Yeah, and that's what happens when that's what was going on until the rebellions in Ferguson and then Minneapolis with George Floyd. You wouldn't have the accountability in the Black Lives Matter movement. Along with that, sort of changed things. But remember, I Can't Breathe. Eric Gardner, he was the first one that said I couldn't breathe, as well as Michael Brown, who said hands up, had his hands up when he was shot, and so there was a hands up, don't shoot. That's what their cry was. And so you got to remember that the system justified the Holocaust of enslavement. They justified the killing of and let the people go who killed Emmett Till. All of this contributed to the frustration. And this is why they're against teaching about this, because it's not that it makes white kids feel bad. It energizes black people to do something about it. You see, when you get the statistics, the data, the disproportion of black people in prison, the disproportion of black people driving while black, getting arrested, stop and frisk laws in New York. All this type of oppression of black people. And white people have been killing mass murders, and they don't say white on white crime. but they make up.
I've never heard anyone else besides me say that, so I feel like I'm in really good company. So
Oh
I've
yeah.
always like on the internet, and I get into a comment section. I ask people, "Have you ever heard of white on white crime?" And the answer is always no. And it turns
Right.
out everyone commits crime against people of their own ethnicity at pretty much the exact same percentage because they're crimes of opportunity and proximity. You can't commit crime against someone who's not around you, and people live around people that look like them. So it's only one ethnicity has had their crime against people that look like them even labeled to be pushed out as a narrative, and that's Black people.
Yeah, and the Civil War was white on white crime.
Yes, it was
In
traitors.
Ukraine, the Revolutionary War was white on white crime.
Yes, it was.
The Jewish and German Nazi War was white on white crime. The Ukraine War is white on white crime.
I think Whoopi got canceled for saying that.
Yeah. She was saying that it wasn't about race.
Right.
She said that it was because it was white on white, and you're right. That's what she was. But back to Beasley and Natasha Hardin, when the lady shot her in the back of the head, the judge let her go. And remember, in the Rodney King case, the police wrote that he attacked them. And if it wasn't for the white man named Holiday that filmed it, we wouldn't have it. And what had led to more accountability is cell phones and videos that people have and cameras. Just recently, his brother Locke, he's in Grand Rapids. He was shot, and the police said his camera on his chest camera went blank, but one of the people that was in the car with the brother that was shot videoed it and showed him getting shot in the back of the head. Or you wouldn't have that, but no one's been arrested. And you see, the first thing you do when you take over a land is establish your laws, your rights and wrongs. The European did that with this country and every country that they've occupied. They talk about Russia trying to occupy Ukraine, but America, look what they did to Gaddafi. And Libya. Look what they've done to Hades. You see, Haiti, they're still punishing Haiti. Got them paying reparation for their liberation. Blockaded the ports so that they couldn't do trade. And they had to agree to pay reparations and still paying them. America don't have no problem saying reparations for them, but when it comes to reparations for what they've done to other people, they act like they don't know what you're talking about.
And you mentioned about what it sounds like to me, what I'm picking up from what you're saying is that there's a repetition to the narrative. Like they say, if you don't know your history, you're damned to repeat it, right? Like it's repeating over and over again. And as far back as some of the other killings you were talking about, they're saying this is a life and death struggle. I had to defend myself. We're killing unarmed people, and we're saying they were attacking me. That reminds me of even Trayvon Martin. A kid being followed and chased by someone and being accosted. And when you really look at all the circumstantial evidence of he's covering so much ground, and he's on the phone talking about somebody's following me, well, run. And then you kind of get cornered, and you turn around. You're fighting for your life if you turn around and fight when someone's been chasing you for that long and you're unarmed, so like that was one of the ones that kind of, when I started to get a little bit politically aware, when I'm still like young and I wasn't really paying that much attention. That's one of the ones that kind of got on my radar. I was like, wow, they really did Trayvon like that. That's kind of messed up. And so, life goes on. I moved to Colorado. I'm sensing a little bit less racism. I'm no longer in the South, and I'm feeling more comfortable. And I moved to Aurora, Colorado, and Elijah McClain's murder by the police happens not right in my backyard, but basically in my backyard. And being on the school board, and I was gonna mention, we have something in common, being school board uh, alumni, I guess. Being on the school board, I started, really being engaged in what was going on in my community. And so I was on the community police task force with your son Omar to try to formulate a third-party oversight organization for the Aurora PD. And in being a part of that group, I saw literally all of the footage, every last drop of it. They tried to only release, I think it was like 40 something minutes, like out of all the different angles, like 40 something minutes of footage, and it really only shows a few minutes of what's really going on. And there's footage of officers taking off their body cams, and then officers coming up with their body cams on, and other officers like signaling to them, like, hey, like this mic, just like, hey, dude, what are you doing? Get that out of here. And then their body cam falls off magically. Our recently deposed police chief, the first time I actually saw her and spoke to her was immediately after that all came out, and we were talking about formulating that task force. And I had a lot of harsh questions about how body cams were falling off, like a thumbtack out of a wall. Like how are we attaching body cams? And it's like you're checking the box by saying, look, I put a camera, but you don't really care about it because nobody's gun fell off. They all fought a small young man. Their guns all stayed perfectly attached. Their shoes stayed on. Their belt stayed on. Their shirt didn't come off. Just the camera. The only thing different is that camera can show that they're doing something wrong. And it was chilling to me. And someone else in the crowd brought up, SEAL Team 6 had their body cams on when they killed Osama bin Laden. They had a helicopter crash and they kept their body cams on. These guys, they can't walk down the street and grab a black man without camera. Everybody's camera just falling off magically. So there's something to it when it comes to this oversight, and they have to keep rerunning the same narrative over and over again. And so I have to admit that myself, I had fallen victim to the European narrative and even calling it a riot in and of itself, because there were massive political implications. So thank you for educating me on that. And, my apologies to the community for not really having that framing in my mind already in the correct reference. So, I wanted to say that and drop that little reference in there. But this tale needs to be told, from the angle you're bringing it from. And so now we've covered Oliver Beasley pretty well, but the Latasha Harlan situation. So she was like, what, 15 years old, and this Korean shop owner, not that it's important that she was Korean, but just speaking on that, because there was a lot of rebellion activities in the Koreatown areas of LA. Am I correct?
Yes, and it was both done by Korean gang members and people that felt that they should take advantage of the situation, as well as they allowed them to have guns on top of their buildings and things of this nature to protect them, and never followed up. But the point is that, see, the resistance is an ongoing process. We first praise the people that get out in the streets and demonstrate. Even for Elijah McCain, he's a nice brother walking. He told the guy, he said, "Man, look, I'm not violent. I don't do this. I'm not bothering nobody. Because he had a mask on, because he was sick and cold sometimes, and the wind bothered him. And the guy somebody called, say somebody suspicious with a mask on. Not everybody got a mask on, but the point is that they beat this brother to death. I mean, choked him out and gave him that shot and killed him. And then they want to write it up like he attacked them, and they were fighting for their lives. This is a brother no more than 140 pounds at the most.
Soaking wet.
Yeah, and so what are you talking about? But because they're used to getting away with it, you understand? Now,
so when it came to when we finally get up to Rodney King, one lucky that we had any footage at all, because video cameras weren't really in the community like that.
Yeah.
The gentleman that actually recorded that video passed away during the pandemic.
They arrested him.
Oh, they arrested him too?
Yeah, arrested him right afterward.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the conservative talking point, not to make this super political, but the conservative talking point is, we want the truth. We want to hear that. We want all sides of the story. We want the context. We want to see what happened before and what happened after. And, that denotes that maybe there's some details you don't know, and that if you got more of the information, that it didn't look like what it was. But behind the scenes, they're actually trying to arrest the guy that recorded them committing this crime, and they actually got exonerated in the beginning. They weren't going to be there were no charges going to be pressed.
No, what happened was the police went through demonstrations and all that. They finally indicted them, and they were supposed to go to court in L.A. and have a diverse jury. So their attorney argued they couldn't get a fair trial, and so they moved the police to Simi Valley. Simi Valley is a police haven and white right-wing community. So they found them innocent. That same night, Reverend Cecil Murray called for a meeting when the verdict came out at Fame, First AME Church in Los Angeles. I attended that meeting. But when we came out, the people were already throwing down, and they just didn't throw down in South Central Los Angeles. See, this is very important. See, in LA 65 was mostly black men. And LA 92, I drove around. It was families out there. People had their kids out there running in buildings and stuff, driving them up and letting them go. The value system has changed a lot.
And I can vouch for that. In researching, I was looking at a lot of photographs. There's a lot of whole families out during that time.
Women. In LA 92, the majority of the people arrested were black men, and the people that were killed were black men. Yeah, you had 14. I think it was. It was 16 black people and 14 Latinos, 6 whites, 2 Asians. I mean, so they matter of fact, they don't call it a Rodney King riot. They called it a minority riot. Now, in 1965, they said that the riot area was from, they called it the Watts riot, but then they said that it was from Alameda to Crenshaw, and from Rosecrans to Washington. But Watts was just 103rd Street. You understand? But people were getting down on Vermont throughout Los Angeles.
Watts got pretty big at that moment, huh?
Yeah. And the same thing with LA 92. They were in Rodeo Road. White people set their own buildings on fire because there's no looting insurance. They caught about 3 of them doing that, paying people to set their buildings on fire or their stores because they didn't have insurance for looting. And they just and that and they blamed the black people or those that were resisting for doing that. And I'm not saying some of them didn't do it, but I'm saying that some of the other people did it to themselves, and they know it because they caught some of them. And
people really look for false flags when the narrative is pointed towards European people. We can go as recently as last year. Or was it last year? Am I losing track? Last year, when the January 6th riot or insurrection, whatever you want to call it, happened at the Capitol of the United States. If you listen to Donald Trump, he said his supporters were very upset about the rigged election. If you listen to Trump supporters, they would say Black Lives Matter and Antifa were up there committing a false flag to make it look like Trump supporters were rioting. But if you go to the actual people that were there, they all say we're Trump supporters and we were trying to stop the swearing in or the confirmation of an election that was stolen and rigged, and we were invited by the president. I was told by the president. So you hear the it's like it's echoing, and the narrative has to get changed. But whenever you look at who's saying this was fake, it's only fake when the onus is on European people. If they say black people did it, black people went nuts. Oh yeah, that's real, 100% true. And you're telling me of accounts of people burning their own properties. How many people burnt their own properties? I mean, you couldn't have heard about all of them, right? I mean, insurance fraud is a rampant thing. Insurance companies have some of the most detectives out there because people commit fraud on it all the time. So I can see that being a pretty good vein of incidents happening in 92, especially in LA. When you think it's coming, might as well go and get your money up.
See, people don't understand. Murder is murder. And this is why I said it to Latasha Harding after the verdict on the steps of the. You see, the Harding case was in Compton. That's where they had the trial. And so after they did, the people started attacking City Hall. So on the outside, I said, this racism is not the Asian woman shooting her. It's the judicial system letting her get away with it. Murder is murder. I don't care who you murder. Such a thing as a racial murder. It's murder. Human beings. The word "you" means people of color. Means color. You. What you are you. And but the point is, humans come in all different colors, just like animals do. And so people, you have to understand, the European always justifies their behavior and always want to be flattered by minorities or ethnic groups in this country. Even
Talk
though
about slavery.
Amen. What I mean by that is that if you're not flattering them and praising them for you being here, then they think you ungrateful. You in our country, and what they see Donald Trump as their savior, like Jesus. This is because he wasn't saving them what? Saving the country for white people. He tells them that. You understand? Now that rebellion and that insurrection at the Capitol is a good example. If that would have been us, we'd been shot down. Second, if in the charges, they would have threw the book at us. They reduced charges to entering a federal building unauthorized, all that. But if there been us, it'd been burglary, kidnapping, and murder if somebody got killed, if they catch you. And the same thing with the young man that supposed to have hired some of his friends to attack him, and they charged him with prison.
Jussie Smollett.
Jussie Smollett.
Yes, sir.
Now, you know how many white people didn't call police and lied? They didn't charge them and say, "Oh, you got to pay for the police and you got to go to prison." You understand? They just
as a matter of fact, let's lambast you publicly across the entire internet, across all the media, every single channel you find.
And then the black district attorney that said, "Hey, I'm charging him the way we charge all people that give false things." They lambasted her for doing that because you're supposed to do what we say do.
Yep.
You saying and so now the beautiful thing is there's resistance, and we always praise the people for resistance. Those that stand up knowingly and unknowingly. If it wasn't for the people of Denver and Aurora that stood up for McLean, they would have never released the video. They would have never released the information that and reached a settlement to try to quiet things down. You see, and that's their whole thing. Give the people some money, and then let them quiet down. But the struggle is a continuous struggle. We've been struggling in this country since we've been here, just for liberation, just for freedom, just for the right not to be killed by police or unjustly tried and put in prison. Look how many Black people getting out of prison after doing. Geronimo Pratt did 28 years, 26 years. Nelson Mandela did 20-something years in South Africa.
And they're still exonerating Black men from prison for 30-year sentences. I was at some store and saw somebody getting released after 30-something years.
Yeah,
being exonerated.
Yep, that's what they do.
So when these people are exonerated from being locked up for almost my entire lifetime, right? They're not going back and finding the person that made the charges against them and dragging them the way they dragged Jesse Smollett. Like we don't. The person that called on Elijah McClain and said he was suspicious. Who was that person? We don't know who that person is. Is their career destroyed? The people starting all these improper arrests of Black people. It always starts with a charge or an allegation or a suspicion. So I think that's a good point when you bring up the Jesse Smollett piece, because and no Black people are behind it. Yeah, get yourself beat up by your friends and claim a racism case. Of course, we're against that. But where's the reciprocal? Where's the reciprocal or the equal and opposite of that? We don't see that. Even as far back as Emmett Till, I don't know the lady's name, and she hasn't been lambasted in history the way Jesse Smollett was. Because you mentioned it for 1 second, I knew exactly who you're talking about, and that's the white supremacy of it. And I think people get a little bit touchy about it when you. It's like racism. My wife Rania and I were having a good conversation about what is racism. What makes something racist, and is racism always the right word? I think we as well-meaning liberals and progressives, not me, not you, and I don't think my wife, but a lot of people on our end of the political spectrum and people of color, people that support people of color, allies, use the term racism very often when it's not necessarily racism. Sometimes it's just the white supremacy within the system that is already existing that is causing an outcome that is a racist outcome. There are racist outcomes without racism explicitly in it.
Well, we define racism as a system of government, cultural tradition, and practices. In other words, institutions. Now, there's a difference between people acting out their prejudice against you versus a racist. The racist is institutional, about the distribution of goods and services based on race, about the administration of justice based upon race. Those are the things that we saw. Racism is about social arrangement, institutional arrangement to impose their will on people of color. The first police department started in the South to suppress slave rebellion and Native American rebellion. And that's how the police came about. Before that, there were volunteers, the Minutemen and night watchmen and people that just guarded things because they didn't have it. Then they built it, and that's what the reason they built it. Now, getting back to your point, racism is a system of government and cultural apparatus. It's institutionalized. It's traditional. It's a practice that it affects your life opportunities, and your life to live. With from that standpoint, like the unemployment, the lack of rights to vote, these are institutions. When somebody says they don't like you or call you an N-word, that's prejudice. You understand? And you can call them a name back. You don't care about that. But when you go to get a job or try to rent some property, and the man say no because of your race, that's where we deal with racism. A system of government, laws, administered and administering. That's what Martin Luther King fought against, laws. The civil rights was against laws, what they call segregation laws, racist laws. Yet you
And
can't drink.
when they killed Martin,
Well,
I'm sorry,
yeah,
sir, I missed you.
what we called it, his sacrifice. When you say they killed him, that's what they did to him. But what we look at, he knew, and him and Malcolm knew, that they would probably be sacrificed from that standpoint. It's just like Jesus. You know, Jesus could have said, God ain't my daddy, and get me off this cross. You understand? They gave him a chance. They say, hey, if God's your daddy, let's see him get you off this cross. Well, Martin Luther King did a lot of good. I didn't understand. I didn't follow Martin. I was a Malcolm X man. But the point is, as I studied him, the strength and the moral fortitude, as he said, the moral compass of the universe is long, but it's been toward justice. He wanted a society of integration, and he said, "I don't want to be your brother in law. I want to be your brother in humanity." And the European, like you said, they couldn't have that because he had a language, civil rights language, civil rights songs that culminated others to get involved. He started criticizing the Vietnam War. He started criticizing poor people, and that upsets the system. And that's why he was brutally and cowardly shot. But at the same time, we remember him for his sacrifice, his commitment, his house being bombed 5 times, him being put in prison 6 or 7 times. He was a straight A student. He was skipped in the 12th grade in the Morehouse on special college program at 15. Had his master's by the time he was 19. His PhD by the time 25. Nobel Peace Prize at 37, 39. But he didn't wear no Jerry curl. He had no pants sagging because he was a minister. And he didn't have to fight for the bus. He had a car. He didn't have to be a part of the Montgomery movement. Him and Carter, they came there from his daddy. His daddy was a big-time minister. So he was middle class. But he chose the struggle for the meek, for the weak. And he saw injustice. And as he always said, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere.
Yep. And also look where he marched. He marched on Washington.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to address the structure, the legislation. He wanted to adjust, he wanted to change policy.
Yeah. He didn't, and they want to turn him into a dreamer. His speech was not about, I had a dream. His speech was about America, a bad check, gave us a bad check.
And the Poor People's Party.
George Raveling got a copy of the notes. And it was Mahalia Jackson that kept telling him while he was reading his speech, tell him about your dream, Martin. Tell him about your dream. She was right behind him. And that's when because he did that speech before, and she had heard it. And that's when he got rid of his notes and started going on, I had a dream. And that was the end of his presentation. But listen to the beginning, he was criticizing America.
Okay.
But now they turn him into a dreamer instead of an activist. He was an activist.
And there are a lot of people who were more conservative than Martin was, also wanted Martin to be quiet even.
Well, yeah, that's what the Birmingham letters was to ministers. You have to understand, you got perpetrators, victims, and collaborators. We have a lot of collaborators. Look at Clarence Thomas. I mean, you got collaborators. Every group has collaborators. Look at the spies of Americans selling people weapons, information, and all that. There's always collaborators. If it wasn't for Native American, they never would have caught Geronimo. You understand? Every group, even Japanese, there are many Japanese that signed up to fight Japanese in America while they were putting their relatives in concentration camps. So, you have collaborators. Look at we blacks for Trump.
Ben
What
Carson.
kind of people is that? I mean, why are you? But
Ben Carson,
you can't
Diamond and Silk. What's her name? Candace Owens.
Yeah, but see, Harriet Tubman, nobody told on her. Back in those days, and it's just a beautiful thing. The struggle is beautiful.
Harriet Tubman exercised her Second Amendment right.
Oh yeah, and well, yeah, of course, she had on the gun. She's a strong sister, and she didn't want just freedom for herself. Matter of fact, when you read her autobiography, she said when she got up in the North, she was happy the first time she got her freedom. But then she got sad because everybody she loved was still back there. And she said at that time, that's when I said, I'm going to go back and get everyone that I can out. And they don't know how many she got out. They try to diminish it, saying only about 100 people are on this, but they don't know. They don't know. But she inspired a lot of other Tubmans and other people. She was a minister. She was a service person that fought for people that have land. And she did a lot of beautiful things. Black womanism. But who they going to promote? Rihanna. We give her a billionaire. You're half naked when you sing, even when you're pregnant your stomach. You know what I'm saying?
To think about it, you have to lowball Harriet Tubman with 100 or so people going across a country on foot with slave catchers, and murderous bands of people, at gunpoint, bloodhounds and whatnot.
Yeah.
Even to be lowballed with that number, you're killing the game right there. So it's like you said, as long as we're resisting, we're winning, because it's basically impossible. And she's doing the impossible every day.
Well, that's what they call it, the holy impossible. They wanted us to be in slavery forever,
Yeah.
But we got out of it. You see a dog running free, you see a rat running free, and here you are on chains. Something wrong, And so people, even though some went and if it wasn't for those that survived. They may not struggle then, but they start struggling later. There's different narratives, and you have to read a lot of the narratives that Black people wrote that they demonstrated resistance in different ways. Some even acting like they were going along with it, but aiding others to run away and helping others. But some was too old to run or just didn't want to go, but they created diversions so those that did want to run get away. So there was different forms of resistance. And there were some white abolitionists and supporters, but at the same time, there's whites today. They'll say, well, I'm not part of the racism, but you benefit from it. So that's why you don't fight and try to get rid of it. You understand? Because you have privileges, white people privileges, even though you say, I'm not doing it, because you built institutions to do it for you. And at the same time, you won't revolutionize those institutions, and change them and change even your constitution. I mean, why people need an amendment to vote, or amendment to be a citizen? Where's your amendment? So that's your credit. Mm-hmm.
Very true. Very true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, okay. So I always like to try to bring it around to something that kind of applies. And maybe it doesn't really apply as much, and I'm just trying to wedge this one in here. But we just got out of 4 years of President Trump. I've heard people talking about, Joe Biden is old and senile and doesn't know where he's at. I just saw an interview or a rally of Donald Trump where he couldn't even pronounce the name of his own social media platform that he had his people created. And it was called Truth Social. He couldn't even pronounce that. And he obviously didn't remember the name of it. Tried to say Truth Central or something like that. Like he couldn't even say it, and it's his own thing. But that really doesn't matter. To me, what mattered was for 4 years, we had a markedly white supremacist, prejudiced, bigoted, hateful person who, basically because he was rich and because he became popular enough, who was able to become president and honestly was willing enough to aggravate or piss off enough people that he seemed, oh, he's cool, he's edgy, he's an a-hole. He'll, he calls it like it is. But this is a man that lost court cases for doing racist things. Like you said, if I apply to get an apartment and I can afford it and I can pass a credit check, and then you say, no, don't give him that apartment because he's black, that's racism, right? You're not allowing them a place to stay. And he lost.
It's deeper than that, brother. William Rehnquist, who was the Supreme Court Justice in the 70s, at his confirmation, they did a background check, and he had property in San Francisco that said, do not sell my property. This is in his deed to a Jew or a black person. And he still got confirmed. I want you to understand something. Trump ain't nothing. It's the people that support him that gives him his power. And you see people that, and these people come out there talking about make America great. All that is dog whistle. I mean, make white people great again, and they feel as if they're losing their country and he's their savior because he's the only one talking about don't let nobody in here but white people in this country, as far as immigration is concerned. Don't, his whole policies is based on, now he got people like Herschel Walker who married white girls, blah, blah, blah. And he got a couple other Negroes that he keep around him and pay him big money, the lapdog with him. But the point is that people want to blame him. He's just being one of the 70 million that voted for him. It's 70 million people voted for this man who had been impeached twice.
Yep.
I want you to understand that impeached and was creating treachery with Ukraine back then, and lies and I mean he lies like breathing and lying is the same to them.
Well, look, I want and thank you for that response, because that exactly goes down the road I was looking for, because he was dog whistling. And in some cases, he was dog whistling so loud it was basically a bullhorn. He made one of his first mottos was America first. And I actually, one day I just got a wild hair and I decided to look up where America first came from. And this is from around the time when he was young. And I Google searched it. Look, it didn't take very long. This is where America first came from.
Yeah.
It came from the Ku Klux Klan telling America not to join World War II because, hey, look, it's just the Jews. I get it. We don't like, we don't like how it looks, but look, they honestly only really cared about getting into World War II because of strategic implications of if Germany continued to win and defeat those countries, what it would do to our trade partners and what it would do to America, strategically. Not because they cared about minorities being genocided or anything like that. The Ku Klux Klan carried banners that said what Donald Trump and his supporters have been chanting since 2015. And it's very deep. We're talking about 70-year-old tropes that are still being said by people my age and younger right now.
Well, they had some research that his grandfather was a member of the Klan. And, again, there are many white nationalist groups. They believe Wyoming, Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, those 5 major states, Idaho, up there is for white people. That's where Furman went after the OJ trial. I played basketball in Idaho. And man, we was in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I was there on a scholarship. It was just 3 black people in the whole town. Police came up to us and said, if y'all want to have a good time, y'all go to Spokane, Washington. Don't mess around up here in Idaho. And we playing basketball for them. See, the exploitation of the black athlete, they see us as sex, entertainment, labor, taxes, and military. That's it. You understand? That's what we supposed to be for them. As a form in the you got people up there playing basketball for University of Alabama, where Governor Wallace was. That's a red state. Now they buy season tickets to cheer for black people playing football, playing basketball. You understand? They cheer for that as long as you're entertaining them.
Yep.
When it comes down to you asking for power, shared power, all of a sudden, they get their sheets out.
That's what it is in a nutshell.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's how it started.
I thought the class exploitation of the black athlete. And how you can't say black athletes are exploited when they're making all that money? I said, listen, they were black people before they were athletes. And if black people are exploited, then they're exploited. That's why they always suing, talking about I got stopped because I was black.
Right.
I was driving my Mercedes in Hollywood and the police pulled me over. I was driving my Jag. And then they want to talk black talk. Before then, they married white girl. Yeah, man. I don't even pay them no attention.
Talk about it.
Yeah.
Look, they spray painted LeBron's house.
Yeah, up there.
They didn't write basketball player on there. They wrote the N-word on his house.
Yeah,
you know, they didn't. It was the race.
But a lot of people don't want to live in the community. I can understand that, I mean, for some of them. But, all of them, come on. I know you got to floss and live in areas but if you don't want to live there, at least come through there. It's like this white guy that built the Tesla. He spent $44 billion to buy Twitter, and nobody criticized him.
Elon Musk.
And man, look at all the homeless. Look at all the hungry people. Look at all the other things you could be doing with that money. But no white folks criticize them because their whole concept is people with money want more money and people with power want more power.
Elon Musk spent $44 billion to buy Twitter. He took out loans against Tesla stock. He took out, he's putting his well-being on the line so he could buy Twitter because he feels like people aren't able to speak freely on Twitter. I'm like, what are we missing? What are we missing on Twitter? Are we missing the hard ER at the end of the N-word? Like, what are we, like, I don't know exactly what's being lost out on. And, you're not going to be able to put Nazi rhetoric on Twitter, or unless you want to lose your market share in Germany. It's illegal in Germany. A lot of the stuff that they're complaining about is illegal in large markets of Twitter. And Twitter is a profit-seeking organization. And they haven't been able to turn a profit for 8 out of the last 10 years. So I don't know what Elon's idea is, but that haircut he has is very reminiscent of a lot of people that are closeted white supremacists, maybe anti-Semitic group members. If you notice, same haircut. Well, not right now, but earlier he had the same haircut as like people like Dylan Roof, who are members of these groups with these organizations that are nostalgic towards some of these other movements. And I noticed an entire movement of young Caucasian men, with that we call it in where I was growing up, we call it the chili bowl haircut, where you just cut it right there, and then it's kind of comb it over to one side. Adolf Hitler had a similar haircut at some point. Like it's a certain aesthetic that they put forth, and it's going around. And I see Elon do that, and then I see white supremacist, racist, bigoted language be banned from Twitter. And he's like, I want to change that. I want it to be so that people can say some of the worst, vile statements possible on Twitter. I've never been banned from any platforms. I can be a little bit explicit from time to time. I've never been banned from anything. What are these people saying that's getting them banned? And what is it you're trying to free? Because whenever they open up their own platforms, your Gab, your Rumble, even this Truth Social, for all these Trump supporters, it's not blowing up like Twitter. So they want it to be as popular as the mainstream, but they want to be able to say the most horrible things that the mainstream doesn't want to hear and is against their terms of service, and will get advertisers to leave so they can't be profitable. It makes me wonder. Look, I've been a supporter of Elon Musk with his business ventures so far when it comes to Tesla, SpaceX, your electric cars, rockets, Starlink, the satellite systems and everything. I like the future. I like technology. I plan on having a futurist on the show in the next month. But good Lord, like, what are we going for? I don't understand why you need to put your life on the line to save something that's already doing fine. Only thing they did was ban a lot of racism, quite frankly.
Well, that's one of the reasons he want to control it. People with power want power. And they see he's not saying, let me start up a platform. He likes the millions of people that's already on Twitter. He don't have to build it. And the issue is not just him owning Twitter. It's about them being able to communicate and throw out dog whistles. And we didn't know nothing about no QAnon. We didn't know nothing about these little secret white malicious groups that exist. I forget the name of all of them that they got going around.
Your Oath Keepers and whatnot.
Yeah. Oath Keepers and all that. With military apparatus, recruiting police, recruiting ex-military people. These people are serious.
Yeah, they're serious.
And I want you to understand that, they're fighting for their lives. Their white lives, white privileged lives, white power.
Their white lives matter.
But they have intergroup conflict.
Yeah, they do.
And then you see, they'll let rappers rap about us, but ain't no rapper gonna rap about Jews. They ain't gonna talk about the Jews in their rap song. They know better.
Now, you didn't say
Jews own their rap, the studio that they're doing. You have Jewish controls a lot of the major networks. They go after institutions where they can subliminally push their agenda. The white folks, the Gentile, would mean white folks in general, can't stand Jewish people. You understand? We sometimes don't know the difference. You got to know their name. You got to Greenstein, then he changed his name to Green. You say, hey, we don't know the difference. It's just like we don't know that a lot of Latinos don't like other Latinos.
right.
You understand? We all call them Mexicans, every one of them. But they're not. You understand? El Salvadoran, Nicaraguan, ethnic conflict. You see what I'm saying? And
yes, sir.
the same thing, but, it's a struggle. Our miseducation, as Carter G. Woodson wrote in his book, is that, we are not training and educating our people to do institutional struggle. Like our kids should be programmed to vote as soon as they get 18. That should be a value. You see what I mean? Our children should be getting education and financial literacy. So entrepreneurship and things of this nature. That's the curriculum. But what are they teaching them? To take a test.
Yes, sir.
You take a test. Now, white people, they got generational wealth. You understand? So their granddaddies them can hire them, and a lot of Latinos, they come from an entrepreneur society because it ain't no welfare, it's farewell. And you got to go, you got to work for it. You understand? So they sell, they beg, they do. So they come in, they're very aggressive. You understand? And you see food trucks everywhere. You understand? You say, damn, I'm buying this food. You understand? And during COVID, you don't know who cooking it. Wow. Hey. But they do it. You understand? They shop with each other. Our struggle is a cultural struggle. I wrote I have an op-ed they call
keeping a black dollar in the black community is harder than, it's harder than holding your breath. Like that's extremely
but that's by design.
Yes, sir.
That's why they won't give loans for us to start businesses.
Exactly.
That's what red line. Japanese, they'll finance people 100% from those banks, Bank of Tokyo, Bank of this, right here in America. You understand? 100% financing for houses. They do all kinds of stuff. America with refugees, they give them money, they give them a place. See, let me tell you something. We got to hold our elected officials accountable. They sitting up there and they Democrats. And Democrats, ain't about 15% black people Democrat.
True.
You understand? And so, but they Democrats. I understand that they get some things out of it. If it wasn't for black people, you wouldn't have those two senators out of Georgia. If it wasn't for black people, Biden wouldn't have been elected. If it wasn't for black people, you wouldn't have a lot of issues because we vote. You vote. Not enough of it. That's why they're suppressing the vote, because we won in Georgia and we got Biden in, and that they delayed their agenda. But they're gonna crack back. I mean, how do you don't vote to impeach Trump?
Right.
I mean, here's a man ain't paid no taxes, and then they talking about, well, even right now they're saying they don't think he'll ever be charged anything, no matter what they find out about him. Because
look, what's Merrick Garland doing?
Merrick Garland is pathetic.
I'm pretty much glad he didn't get put on the Supreme Court. The way he's doing justice right now, Department of Justice. What's the point of having him there? I'd rather have a no-name person who's actually trying to get something accomplished.
Well,
and also, who's that DA? Or not DA? Who's the Attorney General in New York over the Southern District? Because they were supposed to be bringing criminal. It's a brother too. That's what's so crazy. The Southern District of New York, they're not even going to be bringing forth those criminal charges against Trump.
Yeah, and some of the DAs quit. Some of the attorneys for the Department of Justice quit because they said that there was criminal stuff. But let me just tell you this, man. These people, they want to make you think that you crazy, and they have what we call democratic insanity. If the majority of them vote, whatever they do is sane, no matter how crazy it is. And they do this all the time. It's a situation where we as a people, we're looking for justice. We're looking for a lifestyle of peace. And that's all black people. They want to live. White folks have a mentality, we want to rule. We want to rule the world. Not just now they're trying to rule the universe. You understand? And it's insanity at its worst, at its best, And so we have to continue to struggle, though. That's all we can do. Continue to struggle until we eradicate the institutions that they have built that give them power to make decisions. Because that's the monster side of America. There's some good things, you understand? But then there's a monster side. And what Trump has done is said, I'm opening the cages so the monsters can come out. You understand? So they're not ashamed to say they're racist. They got television shows that is based on racism, Fox News and all of that. They're not afraid because he didn't open up the doors. And they said that if Nixon would have had Fox News, he never would have had to resign.
You ain't lying at all. That is the truest thing you ever said right there. And I like that you frame it in a political framework, because when you go big picture, when you go federal, there's only so far we can move the needle, for things in our daily life. That was kind of one of the reasons why I ever wanted to run for office in the first place. I was going to go to the city council. I ended up just kind of slowing down, realized I'd never thrown a fundraiser. I didn't know anybody. I never, knocked on a door before in my life. And I ended up going for the school board. But I had the exact same criticism that you had. We should be talking about in our public school system right now. We should be telling people, especially young people of color, about entrepreneurship, about financial literacy, about credit worthiness, home ownership, and whatnot. And I'm seeing a lack of it when I look at the curriculum, and I'm on the board. And I don't know if we mentioned it, but myself and my co-founder Marcus, that started Dope Black Thoughts. We were both on the school board together. That's actually how we met. When we were in there, we're looking at these issues, and so I actually joined what we call the what do they call it? Senior Math Task Force, where we talked about the math curriculum and what needs to be in there, what doesn't need to be in there, and basically just how to help streamline the process and make sure people get what they need. Because we're hearing that a lot of students aren't prepared for college when we graduate them, and we're patting ourselves on the back that we increased our graduation rate, and they come back and they're like, we weren't ready anyway. So I'm looking at the fact that at that time, 2/3 of our students weren't even going to college, and they weren't ready for regular life anyway. So we need this piece you were talking about, and I was talking about the financial literacy and the credit worthiness and whatnot. And I bring this up during the Senior Math Task Force meetings. And basically, it's the legislation. Like every single time you try to address a major issue, it comes down to legislation. And like legally speaking, they have to have this many credits of this so that they can go to college. We have to provide this course, and what they do is they integrate them together now. So we only have one course that talks about financial literacy, and that's what do they call it, financial algebra or something like that. And it basically talks about how to pay your bills, how to build credit. It talks about real world things. And it's like, where can you put that in if you have to take 4 years of integrated math so you're on the right track and cover the right material to actually go to a college? So if you're college bound, I can't teach you about real life math. That's a huge roadblock. And I can pat myself on the back and say, hey, I increased graduation rates, especially for young Black and brown students. I increased gifted and talented for Black and brown students. I increased achievement for Black and brown students, during my time, not me personally, but, our board, these things happen, and we're happy about it. But if it doesn't equal out to anything in the real world, I got to take that feather right back out of my cap, because if they don't graduate and also pick up that real world experience on their way to graduation, they're no more prepared for the real world than when they walked in. And that's built into the legislation. So we have to have a political conversation while we have the conversation on the ground. We have to get parents involved also.
Well, let me just say this, because I was on the school board. Most of the issues we dealt with were lawsuits and employment in closed session. Lawsuits and employment issues in closed session. Very seldom did we deal with the student and the student need. When they we used to have vocational schools with metal shop, wood shop, home economics, so on, this, that, and this and that, typing and all of that. Everything is based on tests now. Teachers get rewarded incentives for their kids passing the test. And now this is by design. This is by design. Look, when it takes the average student 6 to 8 years to get a 4-year degree now.
Mm.
You understand? 6 to 8 years. I mean, if unless you, the word student means one who studies. And our children think going to school, and our parents think sending your kid to school, they're going to learn. No, you have to study. Then you got a large percentage of Black people in urban areas are in foster homes and placement homes because crack and ice and all other drugs and imprisonment then broke up the family. So they're living with either grandmama or aunt or something.
Yep.
And there's no emphasis on anything other than when you get 18, you got to do something. And my point is this: the value of learning is just as important as learning. You have to give people, hey man, they have to see why they're going to school. Right now, they're going to school because people send them. You understand? Going there for lunch, going there to socialize, going there to look at women or looking at boys or whatever. Going there to play. Not all of them.
But a good amount.
Parent homes and those that got parents, they are going to be involved. You understand? They're going to say, hey, where your report card? You understand? Why are you getting a D and PE? Why you doing, that's a real parent. They there. They're involved. But when you don't know what your kid come home, never do homework, and you never ask them to read you the newspaper to see if they can read. You never ask them to figure out bills. I mean, come on. I'm not blaming them. They've just been miseducated.
Yep.
They think that you send a kid to school, that's the job of the teacher to teach them. It's the job of the kid to study. I just give instructions. And that's what homework is about. 80% of your education is how much homework you do. 20% is instructions and exams and quizzes. And most people don't, they just think you just send them to school. Now, culture, they're not dealing with culture. Culture is theologizing your existence as a people. Having values like the Nation of Islam, they don't eat pork. Even though there's Wiener Schnitzels all up and down the street and bacon smelling all over the place, bacon and eggs and everything. They won't eat it because their religion doctrine says that. If our culture doctrine say don't drink, don't smoke. That's why they broke up our culture. You understand? Don't fight each other.
Right.
Don't steal from each other. That's a cultural value. Nobody care about laws. People break laws all the time.
True. Murder's been illegal since day one.
Yeah, see, look, people that stay married want to stay together. You understand? You can think of a lot of reasons to leave. You won't let me watch the Super Bowl. I'm out of here. You understand? I mean, you can think of anything. But do you think of reasons to stay and put up with each other? It's the little things that break you up. And now getting back to this racism issue, because it is a phenomenon. It's a this is a psychiatric issue and psychological issue. You understand? I mean, the fear of genetic annihilation, of social annihilation. I mean, nobody think about passing laws against miscegenation, people marrying outside the race, frowning on it. You understand? And I mean, it's deeper than most people. It's a global dynamic. It's not just here. When NATO comes together, they don't have no major African countries a part of NATO. You understand? That's European. It's a European war. They're fighting in Europe. Russians are Europeans. They came from the Caucasus Mountains out of Europe and migrated down into Asia. That was Native American. That was Indian, Arabs. Arab is Asian and the African that mix. You understand? But man, Diop wrote all about this. My point is, we have to struggle with those that want to struggle. Don't worry about those that ain't gonna struggle.
Right.
I'm just trying to go to the Western music and going to the concerts and all that. Fine. I ain't saying you shouldn't have recreation and enjoy yourself, but but if you're making it, it's like cats is paying $10,000 to sit in the front of a basketball game. Man, come on, brother, just to be seen because the cameras. Come on, you're paying $10,000 for a seat just to watch something you can watch at home on TV, a big screen, and get it reruns and narrated.
Slow motion.
Yeah. So anyway, the struggle continues, brother, and I'm just glad. I enjoy it. I wake up in the morning, the first thing I say is a good day to struggle.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's a good day to struggle. And I love it. I started in 1965, coming out of high school, and been in it ever since then. Yeah, so it's a question. It's a question of that. Now, I'm pretty sure that young baby is going to have some strong family strength behind them.
Yes, sir.
And you're going to make sure that they have values for school, that they want to get A's, that they want to get scholarships, that they want to get as much knowledge, get in science and math. I mean, you're going to see to that. You understand? Yep. Tutors and everything they need to be successful. And the only reason they don't is because they're rebellious. Because they're going to have the support. We got to start dealing with mental illness too. The homeless and all of that.
Talking about it.
No, brother, it's a rough struggle, man. Here's a country going to spend $44 billion on Twitter and see all these homeless people out there.
Right.
Hey, that's
probably with about a third of that, he could actually provide reusable free homes for people that just need a place to stay. That would be durable enough for if they're mistreated, people could move out and it could be cleaned up. They could move someone else in. I was talking to somebody a few years ago. They were talking about container homes. Take these aging containers from these intermodal trailers, from the shipping and the tractor trailers and the trains, and wire them up with electricity and put some water in them. They're durable. They're made of steel, so you can't burn it down. Give it to them for a very low price. And it turns out, they've done the studies, it's cheaper to give someone a place to stay than to leave them without a home and lock them up when they commit a crime, because it's more expensive when they're in jail. It's cheaper to give them health care up front than it is. Oh, man. But it's cheaper to give them health care than to let an emergency happen.
But let me just say this to you, brother. You'd be surprised if the people are happy to live a life in campers and in homeless camps, because there's no rules. They can smoke, they can drink. When you try to put them in a structure, they feel restricted. And they don't consider themselves homeless. They got people with tents that got TVs in it, fans, everything. And and these are veterans. And these are people that know how to make a tent. And there's
a contingency of them.
They don't have to pay no water bills, no nothing. They dig a hole to use the bathroom. They consider how they're living is their home and their village and their community. You'd be surprised, man. I worked with them, brother. We be saying, hey, come on, we can get you in this house. We can get you in a mission. I'm scared of the mission. They got too many rules. I can't smoke my cigarettes. I can't do this. I can't do that. But out here, I can do what I want to do. Not all.
Right.
Some people want to get out, but there's a large percentage that they're not gonna get out. You understand? They develop a homeless culture, and it's a value system, and they consider themselves as free. They use restrooms and restaurants to wash up and get back and they are content. You understand? And they're not going to give it up. You know, it got too far out of control.
That's
so
true.
Downtown call them hobos and bums, and you know all that. But now they're all over, man. They're all in the freeways, in the parks, in front of stores, businesses, and they got campers. Man, we got campers in LA.
I've never seen anything like that until I moved out here.
Yeah.
Miles of campers on the sides of the streets.
Yeah.
That's absolutely, it's mind-boggling to me. You know, and also when you talk about people that want to be where they are, also the people that are experiencing, you know, tons of untreated mental illness.
Yeah.
I think at some point we've allowed a society to get to a point where it can create an entire homeless culture, where people are, when it gets excessively hot or excessively cold, their life is on the line now. And you know, long as they're not dead yet or not almost dead yet, we're not going to worry about it. You know, and there those people that want to live in that culture. I have no problem with it, because, you know, look, also I've seen some interesting stuff. Like, they do these little social experiments and stuff on YouTube. These guys, they're doing it for clicks, and I don't like that aspect of it. But what they'll do is they'll go up to a person, a homeless person, and ask them, you know, hey, can I get $2? I'm really going through a hard time, or whatever. And they go to a person who's obviously living on the streets, and every single time they'll give them, if they have more than $2, they'll give you the $2. And I thought, it made me think back. I grew up in some pretty good poverty. It made me think back to when we were very, very struggling very hard. We were the most giving people in our entire neighborhood. Every Thanksgiving, somebody's friend who didn't have a place to stay was staying with us. Every Christmas, somebody from my brother's college or my brother's high school, or some relative or somebody from the neighborhood, or somebody was staying with us. It was always us helping others. When we were the ones that, like, if you looked at us, and we had this happen a lot too, a member of the church will come bring a little care package, right? Mm-hmm. But we're handing out to people to a degree where I'm like, obviously I'm not doing bad anymore, right? But it's like, I never would have thought that, you know, as you go down the economic ladder, people are more giving. So whenever this guy would give you would give $200 from the person, the homeless person, he'll turn around and give them $500, and then he'll step back and just watch them on camera, and they immediately go give money or go buy food and give to everyone else. Because there's something about when you're down at the bottom, you know, when you're experiencing the worst, it's like it brings the community closer together. So I just wanted to speak on that. I hear what you're saying about the culture.
Southern hospitality. You used to borrow flour from each other. You used to borrow sugar, and it wasn't a shame. You know, I mean, as we was coming up, see, many of our parents didn't get past the 6th grade. And many of our parents, especially those born in the 1919, 1920, school was not an option. They got to 3rd grade, 4th grade. And then you only had high school and elementary, at kindergarten and elementary. And so they built junior highs because people were dropping out of high school. And see, the commercialization of education, people don't want to talk about.
Right.
They don't want to talk about. That's business. People who got the milk contract, people who got the food contract, people who got the electricity, the phones, the computer contract.
And the textbook contract. You know, who's writing those textbooks and publishing those textbooks?
I tell people, they say, make community college free. Well, you better make the books free, or it ain't free. Because them books.
That was my platform. Yeah, when I was going to run for city council, I was like, I want to make community college of Aurora tuition free. But I didn't even think about the textbooks. You had me right there.
Books. When you go to community college, your books cost more than your tuition.
Yes.
You know, if you tag 15 units of academic classes, you know, I mean, and then they don't even use them. Nice. You understand? You sell them back and they give you a nickel. You know what I mean? It don't even make sense. You know, but
And then they come out with the new edition the next year and only change 5 pages.
man, they got so many community colleges right here in LA. It's all business.
Yeah.
You understand? But you can get something out of it if you know how to get more out of it than it gets out of you.
Yeah.
That's why you need mentors and people to give you the game.
Absolutely.
You understand? You know, I mean, I didn't start really studying until I got in community college. You understand? And then you know, I'm the only one on the basketball team that graduated with his class. You understand? So yeah, and the reason why the brothers, they thought they was gonna go in the NBA. They thought they was gonna, you know, play basketball forever. You understand? But I mean, you got to have a vision for the future. You have to see yourself in the future, futuristically, and where you're gonna be. Like I tell people, you know, man, you will never. I tell young people, you'll never be this age again. 16,
Right.
17. This is the purpose of being young is to prepare to get old. You understand? And live. And you gotta work on health. See, there's not enough emphasis on health in school.
True.
You know, I mean, then they want to know why kids got diabetes and why kids got hypertension and all that. Man, there's no emphasis in teaching kids preventive behavior for health. You understand? To keep from, you know, and I mean, it's just deep, brother. It's deep. You understand? But people in their families will teach them. People that got strong families will teach their kids how to be. You understand? And don't let them eat all that junk food. You understand? And
Yeah, don't let them drink all those fruit punches and eat all those hot chips while they're 5 years old.
Yeah.
You know, don't let them get 16 and drink 3 double servings of energy drinks.
Yeah.
You know, I had a family member that was in dialysis, and I had never heard of dialysis before. I was in my, you know, like 20 or something like that, and I never was exposed to it. And that family member lived for quite a while, going to dialysis. Ended up getting a transplant, and it was almost a 10-year experience. And during those years, I watched the average age of those people go down and down and down. The first times you go in there, you know, this is like, I want to say 2010, 2011. Everyone in there is like 50 and up. Everyone in there is 50 and up, right? And that just about kind of made sense to me. I don't know. It's an illness, you know, there's probably something to do with the kidneys or something like that. But after about 5 years, I'm seeing 30 songs in there. Then I want to say 2015, 2016, I met a guy. He was my age. He was younger than me, actually. He was younger than me. And he was on dialysis.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm just like, if you want to invest in a good stock, invest in DaVita dialysis.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we're doing something serious. But honestly, we need to really combat that, especially in our community when it comes to hypertension.
I'm on dialysis. I've been on dialysis for about 6 years, and I'm just telling you, you know, I was eating them fat burgers and double cheeseburgers and all everything I could eat, and you know, and it got to me. I didn't know. You understand? And then the hospitals prepare you for dialysis because they have contracts with most hospitals don't do dialysis. They contract DaVita or this other one, and they want you to have insurance. It's just a bigger ripoff. They got more dialysis. A study came out in Inglewood where you live. They said they got more dialysis centers than McDonald's in Inglewood.
Hold on a second now.
I'm gonna tell you, brother.
They made so many McDonald's that now they got more dialysis centers than McDonald's.
And it comes from eating McDonald's.
Good, googly woogly.
Yeah, and so
that's that large sweet tea.
Yeah, and so you know, I mean, I didn't know. My parents didn't know. You know, they cooking fried chicken and fried pork chops and everything else fried, and full of salt, and then you go to the doctor for diabetes, and they give you pills that kill your kidneys, and then the next thing you know, they recommend you to go to dialysis, and you say, "Man, you're supposed to have been taking care of me. I go to the doctor every month, for a checkup." No, they prepare you for it, and many of these doctors got stocks in Placentia and Davia.
That should be something that's highly illegal. You can't have a monetary. I mean, okay, so you got the Hippocratic oath, but if you can swear, you can swear on any kind of oath. But if you're invested in dialysis, good Lord, Lord knows man. That's crazy. I'm speechless.
Well, it's a beautiful thing once you know, and see, them that know can do better, and they teach others by example in your practice. People see you, your kids see you, you understand, and they admire you because you give them love, and what you do, they do, and you develop. You always keep hugging and kissing your kids. I don't care when they get 12 and 13. Say, "I love you, man. I love you." You understand? Because you don't want nobody else to outlove your kids than you. And them out there talking about I'm in a gang because I got love from my homeboy.
Right.
D-Dog, Wild Dog, and Bullet Dog. I mean, that don't even make sense. But it's a question of you keeping your kids close to you. You know what I'm saying? No. You stay focused. Now, once you get 18, got your college degree, or going to college and come out at 22, yeah, okay. And you demonstrate to me you know how to make right decisions, and you stay close to your family, all right. But other than that, it's different. All right. So it's been beautiful, brother.
Yes, sir. It's been beautiful. I think Revere is ready. And I could talk to you for hours, obviously. And I actually plan
got my number. Anytime you want to rap, give me a call.
Yes, sir. And honestly, I plan on this being a longer episode.
Yeah.
We talked about that. So we'll how about this? I want to go ahead and get you scheduled for another show. Not necessarily too soon, but I want you to come back.
Wherever you want, man. This is what I do.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I have a podcast on Mondays and Wednesdays.
Okay.
And we be dealing with all kind of issues, And we just had that did the history of Compton, Bobby Johnson, and you may want to get him on your show. And he's a good brother. He came up at Cal State Long Beach. I taught him, and he ex-Black Panther, and he's a good brother. And so we had brother Assad Jabal. He's been living in Cuba for close to 30 years. He was on. He wrote 2-3 books. We be rolling. We be rolling.
Well, we'll stay in touch. And
all right.
I'm gonna get more information from you. I'm gonna link up with you tomorrow, actually.
Yeah,
and we'll chop it up, and I'll get some info and put it out there. So
all right, I just want to say thank you, Asante Sana, which is many thanks in Swahili, for allowing me to be on your show. I love meeting your wife and your baby, and it's a beautiful thing. You understand? I remember when, hey man, I had 6 kids and 12 grandkids. Ooh. I never thought I'd be married.
Wow.
I was Malcolm in the daytime and Superfly at night. It was a nightclub. I hang out with the Dramatics, the Rams. I was out in the fast lane, man. And I'm just glad I got the awakening that I got and changed my lifestyle. You understand? And so, hey, anytime.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Well, God bless. I appreciate you, sir. And
appreciate you too. Y'all get some good rest, man.
Okay, we'll
gonna keep you up. She gonna Revere gonna keep y'all up.
Yeah, he's gonna keep us both up. Keep us both up.
Thank you so much. I learned so much. I came on the show to talk about my experience, but this was way more valuable.
You must too kind.
I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Right. So I'm gonna play this outro. Just hang tight for me, okay?
All right.
And everybody, I really appreciate you guys for sticking in this long. If you're watching after the fact, it's been another great episode of DBT Live. We'll talk to you later.
All right then.
What is love? It's a drug. Let it rotate, just to hit back in it. Calling me an Uber just to hit back in it. Use the cash out like pay, I send it. Is it really worth the wait? I don't get it. Divide and gravitate. Taste that wet emotion.